Hiya! Just a quick video with tips and info on how I make my simple elastic bracelets with letter beads. They're really cute for making meaningful reminders on your bracelet stack and make it really simple for making something custom made for people. I use two different types of letter beads which I use on a bunch of different projects. Today I'm making the stretch bracelets. We've got round ones which are about 7mm by 3.5mm. They do sort of sit flat on your wrist. Not all the time, but most of the time they sort of sit down like that. They have the two letters on each bead, one on each side, so as long as they're sitting flat you can see the letter on them. Then we've got our square or cubed shaped beads. They're about 6mm by 6mm. They have 4 of the letters on them, so whichever way the bead's sitting you're going to be able to see your letter. Then you're going to want some different types of beads just for the bracelet band that goes around the rest of the bracelet. We've got our little round ones here. They've got a much smaller hole. It's about a 1.5mm hole, and our square ones have a bigger hole that's about 3mm. So depending on what you're threading them on might decide which type of bead you want to use. I will put a list of pros and cons for each type at the end of this video, but first up I'm going to make these flat round ones. Both types are super cute, so it's just personal preference really for what you're making, but they're both worthy of being in your bead collection. First up you want to just make your design, so figure out what words you're going to place on it and what beads you're going to use for your bracelet band. I'm going to put the word mama on this one, M-A-M-A, with a little love heart on each side. These bracelets are perfect for any empowering words or little reminders that you want, or your children's or partner's name, or lyrics from your favourite songs. I've seen people put phone numbers on there and put them on their kids in case they get lost, or using them as medic alert bracelets as well. So really whatever you can think of you can put on there. For your design you want to work it so that that word is in the middle and you've got even lengths on each side of your other beads that you're using, so that you can tie your knot for your bracelet at the back of your bracelet. You want to work out what length you need to make, and you want to measure it so that that little word is going to sit in the middle of your bracelet. I usually make my bracelets about 2.5 or 3 centimeters bigger than the wrist measurement. My wrist is about 16.5 centimeters, so I normally make a bracelet that's about 19 centimeters beaded, but it depends on how loose or tight you like your bracelets. I like to use a few smaller beads as well, just on each side of the word. I find it helps to frame the word and make it stand out a little bit. So I'm just popping one on each side of the word there, and then I use a couple right at the back as well. These are just 4mm seed beads and they're good for hiding your knot under. Now we can grab our elastic. So I'm using about 25 centimeters of the 0.7mm Stretch Magic elastic. First thing we do is pre-stretch it, holding each end firmly and giving it a really good tug. Then we can place a bead clip or peg onto the end so we don't lose our beads off the end. Now you can start with whatever beads you've chosen for the band on your bracelet. I've got my 6mm pearl beads. They're a really pretty purple, and then I've got some white ones as well. So I've just made a design where I'm using 2 purple and then 1 white bead. So I'll just go ahead and place all of these beads on. Obviously I've got my length on one side, then I've got my word in the middle, and then the other length of coloured beads on the other side as well. I'm beading down to about 19 centimeters in total for my length of bracelet. Once you're happy with the length of your beaded section and you've got that word sitting right in the middle of your bracelet, then we're going to tie our little knot. I just place one more seed bead at the back so that I'm going to be able to hide my knot underneath that little seed bead. Now we're going to tie a little surgeon's knot. So the first half of this knot is just a simple knot. So just putting the left thread around the right thread, and then we're going to come back the other way with the right thread over the left thread, except on this one we're going to wrap it around 5 times. Bringing this thread around to make 5 loops on this top half of the surgeon's knot. It's a little bit fiddly, but I'll just show you. So you can see I've got the smaller part of the knot on the bottom. So we're going to pull that down tight before we pull the 5 loops on the top down, so that our bracelet's all nice and tight with no loose slack there. Now we gently pull our threads to pull that knot down nice and tight. And we want to gently tug on all the different ends of elastic, so on our actual ends here and then on the bracelet side of the knot as well. Stretch Magic has a little bit of a jelly-like texture, so you want to just keep pulling it through so that it's actually at the capacity of the elastic, and that's going to hold your bracelet nice and secure. Once you're happy with your knot, you can cut your little ends off. You can put a little bit of glue on your knot if you want to, but I find if your knot is tight enough, it doesn't need the glue. Then I bring this little seed bead on top of my knot there by gently twisting it on top so that it's hidden. So that's the first bracelet with the little round flat beads. Now onto the square beads. So these ones are about 6mm by 6mm. And they have a much bigger hole. It's about 3mm in diameter. So these beads, you can actually pop them onto much bigger threads like leather or twine, as well as elastic or wire. Again, for our bracelet, we start off by just figuring out our design. So I'm going to pop Creative Funk on this one and use really pretty faceted beads on the left and right sides for the band on my bracelet. So you can see a nice big hole in these beads, and they also have 4 letters, so one on each side of the cube. Whichever way your bracelet sits, you'll be able to see the letter. I do find with these square beads, they don't actually sit all that well next to each other if you're doing a longer word. This one here has no spacer beads in between, and when it kind of goes around the corner, it can get a little bit chunky looking, where the beads sort of pop up a little bit. So I find the best thing with these square beads is to put a little spacer bead in between each letter so that they sit nicely. So I'm just using 4mm seed beads, so they make them sit nicely next to each other without those seed beads going right inside the hole. Any little round beads that are slightly bigger than the hole would be fine. Now I'm just going to spread my design out and put those little seed beads in between each letter. Then we can start to thread them on. I'm also popping a little black bead in the middle there. Because this bracelet has 2 words, I want a little gap there between to separate the 2 words without it being too big. Then we've got our spacer beads on each side of the words as well. The rest of the design I'm just using clear, silver and black faceted beads. Remember, you want to have your measurement for your beaded bracelet, so it's about 2 or 3 centimeters bigger than your wrist measurement, and you want to have that word sitting right in the middle. Now we need our elastic, so we're using about 25 centimeters of 0.7mm Stretch Magic elastic, and we want to pre-stretch our elastic, so just giving it a really good tug on each end. Then we can pop our beading clip or peg on the end of our elastic and start to thread our beads on. Starting with your alternate beads for your bracelet band so that you can have that word right in the center of your bracelet, and beading down about 2.5 or 3 centimeters longer than your wrist measurement. Keep checking the size of your bracelet. And I've got my little seed beads here so that I'm going to be able to pop that over the top of my knot to keep it hidden. Now we tie our little surgeon's knot. For that first part, we're just doing the left side over the right side and around. And for the second part, we're going to do the right side over the left side, and we're going to do this around 5 times. Just bringing that tail around 5 full twists for our surgeon's knot. If you can see that there. Then we gently pull the first part of the knot down, and then the 5 loops down as well. Gently pulling on all directions on our tails there and on the bracelet side as well, just to get your elastic knot really nice and tight. The elastic does tend to give a little bit as you pull it. That's what you're waiting for, so that that knot can be really nice and tight. Then you can cut your little tails off and pop it inside your seed bead. So there's your simple elastic letter bracelets with the square or round beads.